Hi everybody, Marc Laurenson here from Sydney Astrology School, and thanks for joining me as we look at episode number 5 in our Sex and Intimacy series. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at the sign of Sagittarius and its ruling planet Jupiter. Now, in previous episodes, I've mentioned that I'm not really looking at people with the sun in Sagittarius here. I'm more interested in people with Sagittarius on the cusp of the fifth house or the eighth house, because those houses have everything to do with love and intimacy. I'm also going to be looking at people who've got the planet Jupiter in those particular houses as well. Okay, so when we're thinking of the planet Jupiter, we've got to be aware of its counterpart, its mythical counterpart, Zeus, who was not terribly good at being faithful. Um, he was quite a philanderer when it came to sex. Now, I'm not going to be saying that everybody with Sagittarius on the cusp of those houses or Jupiter in those houses are necessarily going to be promiscuous, but I am going to be saying that the idea of really, I want to say, throwing themselves wholeheartedly into this area of life is big for those people. And why would they be doing that? You know, if the need to have this is a feeling of wanting more of it, there's a reason behind it. And for everybody with lots of Sagittarian energy in their chart, or Jupiter, strong Jupiter in their chart, will realize that they're here to learn something. You know, they're here to expand their understanding. It's about that feeling of becoming wiser, or that feeling of finding meaning in your life. That's all very Jupiterian, isn't it? So Jupiter and Sagittarius energy wants to learn through experience. You know how Gemini and Mercury is more about the information coming in. Sagittarius is more about experiencing what they need to learn. So going into areas of sex and intimacy for Sagittarius and for Jupiter is exactly that. It's a feeling of expanding. It's a feeling of becoming a little bit more in contact with who they are, a little bit more in contact with what I would call becoming wiser or becoming even more educated via what they're learning in those particular environments. Okay. Now, we know that Jupiter likes a lot of things. You know, it's always about more. And so you've got to kind of be a little bit careful on that level as well. I mean, nothing wrong with wanting more, but there is also that feeling of going down a road where it's never enough sometimes, and you don't know where to stop. Jupiter doesn't have a good hold on impulse control. And so, therefore, in situations that are going into that territory, there might be a feeling of you not being able to be, what's the word, discerning is a good word, or to be able to be more disciplined in certain areas, whereas probably is maybe a little bit better to hold back in some time. Now, again, I don't want to actually say that having sex and having lots of it is a bad thing, because it's not. It's not a bad thing at all. You always just have to look at the intention behind it and why you're doing it and the enjoyment of it in the end. Okay. Now, this is a really interesting area that I want to go into as well. Jupiter is the judge, and judgments of things, and you know the whole idea of becoming very self-righteous, the whole idea of goods and bads, and black and white, and opinions, and those kind of things will come in very, very strongly with Jupiter. So you're going to go down two ways with this one. A lot of people might actually become quite pious in this area. They could be quite judgmental in this area. Their beliefs or their ethics or their principles might be around sex not being a good thing, you know, and the religion has done a really good job of doing that, hasn't it? So you might get some very judgmental kind of energy coming into this area as well. But then again, it's a little bit like the other side of the coin could be the lack of judgment that comes in to this area. I know people who have got themselves into some pretty sticky situations via not really being able to see clearly in what they were doing. They kind of, that blind faith kind of thing that Jupiter is kind of well known for. Jump into situations, jump into intimate or sexual situations without really thinking it through, or without really standing back from it and seeing it for what it is. So you're going to get the both sides of the coin when it comes to the judgment side of Jupiter as well. Okay. I know a lot of people who go into areas where it can be quite risky. The Mile High Club, to me makes me feel, because it's very Jupiterian in lots of ways, it's kind of a risky adventure, which is very Jupiterian. And on another level, they're traveling, which is very Jupiterian as well. So you get this whole idea of people who are kind of liking to play around with it a little bit, like the confidence level in these people is pretty high in these particular areas. So therefore, they will push a little bit further than the average person would. Now, again, I want to just put a little bit of more time into the area of when I say addiction, I don't necessarily go down the hardcore version of addiction, but I do want to say that sometimes with Jupiter wanting more and more and more, sometimes it's never enough. And the fifth house can be quite an addictive house, because the fifth house is where we look for love, where we look for play, where we look for that buzz inside of us. It's a feeling of being alive in the fifth house. Okay, I knew a guy many, many years ago who had Jupiter in Sagittarius. It's in its own sign in the fifth house. He was very, very attractive, beautiful body, and pretty much could get anybody he wanted. He was a gay guy, and every time I would bump into him, he was with a different man. It was kind of like, oh, who are you with today, kind of thing. So again, nothing wrong with that, but it feels to me that it was kind of like that searching for something, that addictive need to possibly find love through sex, or to be able to always feel like they needed the attention that came with that as well. So again, it's one of those kind of things that sometimes I feel can never be satisfied, if you know what I mean. Now, I know a lot of people with strong Jupiter in the eighth house or the fifth house. Also, Jupiter in Sagittarius will come. Not Jupiter in Sagittarius, sorry. Um, Venus in Sagittarius, but Jupiter in Sagittarius as well, in those houses. But Venus in Sagittarius, sometimes even Mars in Sagittarius. I find that they're often attracted to people from different countries, people who are foreign to them. There's something fascinating about being with somebody who is brought up in a completely different way, a different culture, a different religion, possibly. And maybe even when they travel, travel would have a lot of that involved as well. A lot of deep, intimate encounters will come out through travel as well. I just want to keep on coming back um, to this area of life for the Sagittarian energy, the Jupiter energy, as the of wanting to learn something, wanting to understand more about themselves and understand more about life. So therefore, they're going to probably attract these kind of people into their lives. They're going to attract people who will bring that kind of learning experience into their lives in some kind of way. Now, this is not always going to be good or bad. It's going to be a little bit of both. sometimes you're going to be bringing people into your life that probably want a lot of this kind of stuff. And you've got to kind of keep up with them, if you know what I mean. I know a woman, who is with a guy with Jupiter in the fifth house. She's got Jupiter in the eighth house, and she's attracted him into her life, and he wants sex all the time, like all the time. So she's kind of, in her own way, she's kind of had to deal with it, having Jupiter in the eighth house, because she can either give power away to that and pretty much do what he wants, or she can take the power back into her own hands and be in control of the situation in some kind of way. So what she's done, she is a Virgo. So what she's done is she's actually regimented, times and days for this to happen. So she is drawing the line to a certain degree. It is happening more than I suppose she wants, in a way, but at least she's pulling it into line. And I want to say that there needs to be a little bit of that involved with the Jupiter energy as well. I feel that there is something that really does need to be able to temper it in a way too. Now, Jupiter in the fifth house and in the eighth house, or Sagittarius on the cusp of those particular houses. I want to actually say this can be quite a beautiful thing, and it's meant to be quite a beautiful thing. Love, falling in love, and sex, and even sex without love, sex just for the joy of it, for the fun of it, without love, is a beautiful, beautiful experience. It's a truly beautiful experience. And we as human beings have to come into that knowing, into that understanding. So much has been placed on sex in such a negative way, an old-fashioned idea, a religious idea that always makes us feel a little bit, that the area of sex is kind of problematic for us because of what's been drilled into us. Jupiter wants us to go down the road of really throwing that away, really giving that idea up, and really getting into it and really loving it and really experiencing it and really learning from it full on. And I want to say, in situations that do feel that there is love involved in it, or that does feel that there is a real wonderful, beautiful, healthy connection between you both, then it can really be one of those experiences that do take you to another level of who you are. And I truly believe that that's what Jupiter in those particular houses want for you.